Hello, I'm Malcolm Fleschner, back with another video blog. As Americans, we've long been accustomed to having our political leaders lie to us.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
What newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what one specifically, I'm curious that you...
all of them.
Lately, however, it's become apparent that this sort of duplicity is more widespread than ever, and that public officials today will brazenly make campaign pledges that they not only have no interest in following through on if elected, but that they may in fact do just the opposite of. Just a couple of recent examples include the healthcare debate, when candidate Obama pledged support for inclusion of a public option in the healthcare bill, and then as president he actually fought to keep the public option out of the bill. Or the congressional Republicans, who during the 2010 midterm elections talked incessantly about jobs, 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 but now that they're in power, have directed all of their energy toward reading the Constitution aloud on the House floor, defunding NPR, and complaining about President Obama's March Madness picks. Pretty much anything, as long as there's no chance of passing legislation that will create any actual jobs, jobs, jobs. Today's elected officials have essentially become the political equivalent of the boyfriend you ask, "Do I look fat in these jeans?" And he says, "Of course not, you look great." But in reality he's thinking, "I'm going to cut your Social Security." Thankfully, the public isn't just lying down and accepting this duplicity. A variety of strategies have recently emerged to go behind the public statements and get at the truth of what our politicians, business executives, and other public leaders actually believe. A short list of these strategies includes publishing secret government cables like WikiLeaks has done, making prank phone calls to elected officials as in Wisconsin, and shooting undercover gotcha videos of political opponents, like the ones released by right-wing operative James O'Keefe. Now, of course, in the case of O'Keefe, who went after Acorn, Planned Parenthood, and NPR, undercover sting operations don't always reveal the truth that you're looking for. But not to worry. The beauty of video is that with a little deceptive editing, the truth can become anything you want it to be, especially when you can count on a compliant mainstream media to run your footage without bothering to ask a lot of pesky questions. But while these varied efforts are no doubt admirable, what we really need is a more comprehensive, standardized approach to getting at the truth from those in positions of power. There is, of course, what we might call the Dick Cheney method, which would entail demanding answers from elected officials who've had electrodes strapped to their genitals. Now, tempting as this approach may be, torture is notoriously unreliable, not to mention that many of today's politicians would probably just enjoy the experience and demand even more interrogation sessions. Instead, I think a better answer is with hypnosis. If you want to run for public office in this country, you should have to agree to be hypnotized in a public forum and asked to tell the truth about your plans for what you'll do if elected. Imagine how differently things might have turned out in Wisconsin if, prior to this past election, Scott Walker had delivered his standard lines about cutting excessive government spending, but then he'd had to answer a series of questions from Dr. Bigelow. "Do you really care about reducing government spending?" "No." "But do you plan to use overspending as an excuse to launch an all-out assault on public sector unions?" "Yes." "I thought so. Now cluck like a chicken." You see, it's informative and entertaining. Now, you might think that Republicans would be violently opposed to this plan, considering how much their political success depends on lying, distortion, and manipulation. But the beauty of this plan is that the right-wingers feel the same thing is true of Democrats. You don't think Tea Partiers would love the chance to put Obama in a trance, to demand the truth about his lifelong love of Marxism, his devotion to the Muslim faith, and of course to ask him where he was really born? Of course they would. And finally, for those of you who think that my idea is unworkable, that politicians would never agree to this, and that even if they did, they could just pretend to be hypnotized and give phony answers, spare me. Because before you light up the comment section of this video, let me just say that you don't think it's a bad idea, that you think it's a good idea, and that you're going to tell everyone you know to watch this video, and to watch all my other videos, and leave positive comments. Now bark like a dog. Until next time, this is Malcolm Fleschner, aka Dr. Bigelow, saying, stay strong, nation.